Is the American housing market a ticking time bomb or a safe haven for investors? That's the million-dollar question on everyone's mind. Let's dig a little deeper and try to paint a clear picture of the current state of the American housing market. Picture this: a chessboard with its pieces in a constant state of flux. That's what the housing market resembles right now. On one hand, we're witnessing an unprecedented surge in home prices. According to the National Association of Realtors, the median home price for all housing types in 2024 is a staggering $600,000, a significant leap from previous years. On the other hand, we're grappling with a supply crunch. The inventory of homes for sale is at an all-time low. With fewer homes on the market, the competition among buyers has intensified, further driving up prices. This scarcity is like a double-edged sword. While it may seem like a seller's market, it's also a barrier for many potential homebuyers who are priced out of the market. The COVID-19 pandemic and the economic policies in place have further complicated matters. The pandemic has spurred a shift towards remote work, leading to a demand for larger homes with personal workspaces. Concurrently, the low interest rates set by the Federal Reserve have made mortgages more affordable, fueling demand, but also adding fuel to the fire of rising home prices. The housing market is a puzzle, a complex interplay of various factors: demand and supply, economic policies, and unforeseen circumstances like a global pandemic. It's a puzzle that can sometimes seem insurmountable, but it's not impossible to decode. Understanding the dynamics of the housing market can be complex, but let's unravel this mystery together. We'll delve into the housing bubble phenomenon, discuss the economic indicators at play, examine the role of government policies, and explore consumer behavior. We'll also forecast the future of the American housing market. Stay with us as we embark on this deep dive into the impending American housing crash. Ever heard of the term housing bubble? It might sound like a playground game, but it's far from child's play. A housing bubble, in simple terms, is a run-up in housing prices fueled by demand, speculation, and exuberant behavior. But don't be fooled by the playful term. The aftermath of a housing bubble can be devastating to an economy. So how does a housing bubble form? It all starts with low interest rates. When interest rates are low, it's cheaper to borrow money, and people start buying houses. This increased demand pushes up house prices. But here's the kicker. As prices rise, people start buying houses not just for shelter but as an investment. They buy with the belief that prices will continue to rise and they can sell at a profit. This speculative investing fuels the fire, driving prices even higher. And then, just like a child's bubble, it bursts. The prices reach a point where they are unsustainable. People start selling their houses, trying to cash in on their investments. But as more and more people sell, supply outstrips demand, and prices plummet. Does this sound familiar? It should. This is exactly what happened in the 2008 housing bubble. Low interest rates and speculative investing led to a massive run-up in home prices. When the bubble burst, it triggered a financial crisis that sent shockwaves through the global economy. So, why are we talking about this now? Well, there are signs that we might be in the midst of another housing bubble. House prices have been rising at an unprecedented rate, and some economists are sounding the alarm. But remember, predicting a housing bubble is not an exact science. There are many factors at play, and the timing and impact of a bubble burst can be hard to predict. So, while it's important to be aware of the signs, it's also important to approach the topic with a healthy dose of skepticism. So, the million-dollar question remains: are we in a housing bubble right now? To answer that, we need to look at some key economic indicators. First, let's talk about interest rates. They're like the heartbeat of the economy, pumping life into various sectors, including housing. Lower interest rates often encourage borrowing and investing, making it easier for people to buy homes. On the flip side, higher rates can make mortgages more expensive and cool off the housing market. Next, let's consider unemployment rates. When more people have jobs, they're more likely to buy homes. However, when unemployment rates rise, fewer people can afford to make such a substantial investment. A spike in unemployment can signal potential trouble for the housing market. And of course, we can't ignore GDP growth. The gross domestic product reflects the overall economic health of a country. When the GDP is growing, the economy is in good shape, and people tend to invest more in housing. But when the GDP shrinks, it can indicate an economic slowdown, which often dampens the housing market. Now you might be wondering, how are these indicators looking right now? Well, that's a great question. Currently, interest rates are relatively low, which typically fuels the housing market. However, we're also seeing a rise in unemployment rates, which could indicate potential headwinds for the housing market. Meanwhile, GDP growth has been somewhat inconsistent. While there have been periods of growth, there have also been periods of contraction. This inconsistency can create uncertainty in the housing market, as people are less likely to make significant financial commitments during uncertain times. But remember, these indicators are just part of the picture. They're like pieces of a puzzle, each providing a glimpse into the health of the housing market. But to get the full picture, we need to look at all the pieces together. These indicators provide important clues about the health of the housing market, but there's more to the story. Government policies play a pivotal role in shaping the housing market, but how? Let's unravel this complex tapestry of regulation and intervention. At the heart of government influence on the housing market are policies such as tax credits for homebuyers and federal housing loans. These policies are designed to stimulate growth, provide stability, and ensure accessibility to the housing market. Let's first talk about tax credits for homebuyers. These are essentially a form of subsidy, reducing the overall tax burden for individuals and families who are buying a home. They can be particularly beneficial for first-time buyers, who often face the most significant financial barriers. By reducing the cost of homeownership, these tax credits can stimulate demand, driving up house prices in the process. Now let's shift gears to federal housing loans. These are loans provided by the government to promote homeownership, particularly among those who might struggle to secure a mortgage from traditional lenders. Like tax credits, these loans can bolster demand. However, they can also lead to an oversupply of credit, potentially inflating a housing bubble. But government policies don't merely stimulate demand, they also aim to control supply. Zoning laws, for instance, can restrict where and how many new homes can be built. This, in turn, can inflate house prices by limiting the supply of new properties. Moreover, the government can also intervene directly in the housing market during times of crisis. For example, during the financial crisis of 2008, the U.S. government stepped in to prop up the housing market, buying up mortgage-backed securities to ensure that the flow of credit did not dry up. In short, government policies can both fuel and dampen the flames of the housing market. They can stimulate growth and provide stability, but they can also sow the seeds of a housing bubble and exacerbate market crashes. Government policies can either make or break the housing market, but the final verdict always rests in the hands of the consumers. After all, it's the choices of buyers and sellers that ultimately determine the direction of the housing market. Consumer behavior is the wild card in the deck of the housing market. From the moment we wake to the time we go to bed, we make choices. Choices about what to eat, what to wear, where to go. And for some of us, the choice of where to live. Our individual decisions, when viewed collectively, can reveal a fascinating story about the state of the housing market. Let's take a closer look at consumer confidence. It's a bit like the weather forecast of the economy. When confidence is high, people are more likely to make big-ticket purchases like homes. They're betting on a sunny economic outlook with steady employment and rising incomes. But when confidence dips, it's like a storm on the horizon. People tighten their belts, delaying major purchases. This can slow down the housing market, sometimes dramatically so. Then we have demographics, the study of who we are. Age, income, family size, all these factors influence our housing choices. The baby boomers, for instance, are downsizing, freeing up single-family homes. Meanwhile, millennials are entering their prime home buying years, adding demand to the market. And let's not forget about Generation Z. They're just starting to make their mark, and their preferences could shake things up in unexpected ways. So you see, the housing market is not just about bricks and mortar, it's about people. It's about us. Our hopes, our fears, our dreams, our collective decisions shape the market for better or worse. We create the demand, and that demand drives prices. So next time you're pondering the state of the housing market, remember this. It's not just about economics, it's about psychology, it's about sociology. And so, the fate of the housing market is ultimately a reflection of our collective actions and beliefs. So where does this leave us? Are we heading towards a crash or a boom? Let's recap the various factors we've discussed. The housing bubble phenomenon, economic indicators, government policies, and consumer behavior all play pivotal roles in shaping the future of the American housing market. We've seen how housing bubbles form, driven by speculation, easy credit, and the belief that prices will always rise. When the bubble bursts, it can lead to a crash, causing significant financial distress. But remember, bubbles are not a certainty. They are a product of market dynamics and human behavior. Economic indicators give us a pulse reading on the health of the housing market. Unemployment rates, wage growth, inflation, and mortgage rates, these are the vital signs we monitor. Today, some of these indicators are flashing warning signs, yet others suggest resilience and potential for growth. Government policies, from interest rates to lending standards, have a profound impact. They can stimulate or stifle the housing market. Recent policies have been geared towards stability and affordability, yet their long-term effects remain to be seen. Consumer behavior, too, is a powerful force. The choices we make, driven by our needs, desires, and fears, shape the housing market. Today we see a generation grappling with affordability issues, while another is downsizing and seeking different living arrangements. So, are we headed for a crash or a boom? The truth is, it's hard to say. There are signs of stress, but also signs of strength. A crash, if it comes, could be painful. But it could also lead to a reset, a chance to address underlying issues and build a more sustainable housing market. While a boom could mean prosperity for many, it could also exacerbate affordability issues and widen the wealth gap. It's a delicate balance, and the stakes are high. While the future remains uncertain, one thing is clear. The American housing market is more than just bricks and mortar. It's a mirror of our economy and society. So, is the American housing market a ticking time bomb or a safe haven for investors? This is the million-dollar question we've been exploring throughout our deep dive. We've seen that the American housing market is a complex, multifaceted entity, a puzzle of intricate pieces that interlock in unexpected ways. We began by examining the perplexing nature of the housing market itself, a realm of paradoxes and contradictions. We then dove into the phenomenon of housing bubbles, those tantalizing ephemeral constructs that promise riches, but often leave devastation in their wake. Our exploration led us to the vital economic indicators that give us insight into the health and direction of the market. Unemployment rates, inflation, GDP growth, these are the pulse points of the economy, each with its own tale to tell. We also considered the role of government policies, those invisible hands that guide, shape, and sometimes disrupt the market. From tax incentives to lending regulations, the influence of policy cannot be underestimated. And let's not forget the consumer, the individual homebuyer, whose behavior and perceptions can sway the market in surprising ways. Our journey culminated in a look at the future of the American housing market. Here, the waters become murky. There are predictions of a crash, warnings of a bubble on the brink of bursting, yet others see a robust market, resilient and poised for growth. In the end, the future of the American housing market remains uncertain. It's a mystery wrapped in an enigma, a puzzle still waiting to be solved. But let's not lose sight of one crucial fact. The American housing market is a critical piece of our economic puzzle. It's a driving force, a cornerstone, a linchpin. It impacts our lives in countless ways, from our personal finances to the health of our national economy. Whether a crash or a boom lies ahead, one thing is certain. The American housing market will continue to be a critical piece of our economic puzzle.